Ran is a 1985 film directed by Akira Kurosawa. Loosely adapted from William Shakespeare's King Lear, the film is a story of Haitara, a great ruler. He wants to step down and divide his kingdom among his three sons. Taro and Jiro flatter their father, while Saburo warns that he shouldn't have such trust in his sons. Haitara mistakes this as a threat and disowns Saburo. Taro dies, leaving Jiro to claim the kingdom. Saburo and his father reconnect. There's a great battle between Saburo's army and Jiro's army, and in the end, Saburo and Haitara are dead. Comparatively, King Lear is about a sovereign who wants to divide his country among his three daughters, with similarly disastrous results. By this point in his career, Kurosawa had made the transition to color. Although it had been standard for many years, Kurosawa didn't actually make his first color picture until 1970. Although I prefer Kurosawa in black and white, Ran takes full advantage of bright, even garish colors to differentiate characters, armies, or to show extreme violence. The film employs a lot of long shots, with very few close-ups. This adds to an atmosphere of omnipresent viewer, watching from a distance the folly of mortal men. It was nominated for the Academy Award for Cinematography, and you can plainly see why. Adapting Shakespeare for film is an incredible challenge and risk. You wouldn't think it would be. I mean, it's Shakespeare, it's timeless, it's instantly recognizable. And yet, there's that other edge of the sword, isn't it? If you don't do it right, people are gonna say, "You're butchering Shakespeare." It's practically blasphemous. Also, if you don't bring anything new to the table aesthetically or thematically to a play that has been put on stage for centuries, why bother? Shakespeare has been adapted to everything from science fiction to modern retellings, and everything in between. In other words, if you're gonna make a Shakespeare film, you better go hard or go home. By the time Akira Kurosawa got around to Ran, he had already adapted Shakespeare to film, but the epic scale of Ran had the director working on every last detail of it in pre-production for about a decade. That and difficulty securing financing for something of this size, of course. So let's dive into how Ran compares to King Lear. The film isn't just the Japanese King Lear, though. That's too simplistic. It's the other changes that are most significant, not just the setting. In the play, the fool is Lear's personal comedian. Lear must value him because the fool is the only character who is allowed to criticize the king without being punished. When a character named Kent speaks up to him, Lear banishes him. But the fool is actually Lear's constant companion, loyally following him, even after the aging king has gone mad. In the film, the character of the fool is expanded, even given a name, Kyoyami. His manner of speaking is effeminate, and his appearance is androgynous. He's actually played by a pop star with the stage name Peter, a celebrity in Japan's LGBT community. Kyoyami is actually a fascinating addition to the film. He balances traits often mischaracterized as strictly masculine and feminine, bravery and tenderness, respectively. This is in stark contrast to Hidetora, whose wars of aggression and macho posturing were traits that eventually led to his downfall. Lady Kaede is another invention of Ran. One could argue that she is loosely based on one of King Lear's daughters, but that is not her role in the film. Kaede is the wife of Taro, one of Hidetora's sons. Later she becomes Jiro's mistress. Part of the divergent narrative threads and characters in this King Lear adaptation came about because the genesis of this project actually wasn't King Lear at all. The starting point of Ran came from Kurosawa's knowledge of Japanese historical figure Mori Motonari. It was only after brainstorming the idea did Kurosawa notice the parallels between his film concept and King Lear. Afterwards, elements of Lear were added into this project. It's no surprise that Kurosawa noticed the similarities and made this project a Shakespearean adaptation. Prior to Ran, he directed Throne of Blood, an adaptation of Macbeth, and The Bad Sleep Well, inspired by Hamlet. So considering Ran is only a loose adaptation of King Lear, how well do the play's themes and ideas connect with those of the film? King Lear sometimes broaches the concept of justice, notably divine justice, and our relationship with God, and who is to blame for injustice on earth. In the play, Gloucester says, "As flies to wanton boys are we to the gods. They kill us for their sport." Translating this to more modern tongue, Gloucester is saying that he saw a man that made him think that people are insignificant, and that gods play with us as terribly as young boys crush insects. This is not a sentiment shared by all characters in King Lear, though. In Ron, this concept is brought up by Kiyomi, the fool. The fool is told not to blaspheme, but not because of any sense of reverence. Rather, Kiyomi is told that it is gods who weep, not us. They watch us killing each other since time began. The gods can't save us from ourselves. Concern over mankind's propensity towards violence and war reoccurs over the course of many Kurosawa's films. It's no surprise that he found this aspect of King Lear so alluring and so recognizable. He once said, "What I was trying to get at in Ron, and this was there from the script stage, was that the gods or God or whoever it is observing human events is feeling sadness about how human beings destroy each other, and powerlessness to affect human beings' behavior." At several points in the film, we see these transition shots of clouds to move us ahead in time or to a different place. But these have greater purpose than only a change in setting. It also foreshadows the coming storm of chaos and war. The further we get into the film, the darker and more ominous the shots of the clouds become. It also prepares the audience for one of the central themes of the film, the power of divinity or nature over the insignificance of humanity. This is tied directly into lines from the play. "The wrathful skies gallow the very wanderers of the dark, and make them keep their caves. Since I was a man, such sheets of fire, such bursts of horrid thunder, such groans of roaring wind and rain, I never remember to have heard. Man's nature cannot carry the affliction nor the fear." Nature also visually plays a role early in the film, as we see the aging Hirotora on top of a lush hill. This is how he sees himself, on top of everything. Later he says he is insulted that he should have to sit beneath his son, even though it appears to be only a few inches. The title, Ron, is loosely translated into English as chaos. Translations from one language to another sometimes lose some of the nuance, especially since Ron can also be translated as rebellion, or even a kind of madness. But for the sake of brevity, let's stick with the best translation, chaos. How does chaos fit in with the themes of both King Lear and Ron? Well, one could argue that King Lear speaks to the illusion of order held together by ambitious despots. King Lear thought himself so great that he was able to control his country proudly from his throne, but once he starts to wander into the wilderness, he finds that he is a lot less significant than he once thought. And in Ron, Hirotora makes the same mistakes and suffers much in the same way. He comes across a man who is blinded, a role held by Gloucester in the play. This blindness mirrors Hirotora's blind pride. He has seen everything all wrong.